Darkness gripped the remote Arctic settlement of Dixon, the furthest northern outpost in Russia. On that fateful July morning in 2022, the natural order of things turned upside down. A young polar bear stumbled toward the settlement, his movements awkward and desperate. His ribs protruded sharply against his once magnificent white coat, now dirty and matted. The reason for his suffering glinted in the pale Arctic sun, a metal can lodged firmly in his mouth, cutting into his tongue and gums with every painful attempt to dislodge it. This wasn't just any can, it was condensed milk, a sweet temptation that had become a death trap. For days, perhaps weeks, this bear had been unable to eat or drink properly. His strength faded with each passing hour. In the unforgiving Arctic, this meant certain death. Sergei Karasev, a weathered local fisherman, spotted the bear first. "Something's wrong," he muttered, reaching for his binoculars. What he saw chilled him more than the Arctic winds ever could. The bear wasn't hunting. It was approaching deliberately, making eye contact, breaking every rule of the wild. "He's asking for help," Sergei whispered to himself, scarcely believing his own words. In Dixon, humans and polar bears maintained an uneasy peace, keeping strict distance from each other. Bears were shot if they came too close, but this bear seemed to know he had no other choice. Word spread quickly through the settlement of just 676 souls. Most grabbed rifles, preparing to defend their homes from what they assumed was a desperate, hungry predator. But Sergei stood his ground. "Look at his eyes," he told the others, pointing. "He's suffering." The settlement split into two camps, those who wanted to shoot the bear immediately and those who recognized something extraordinary was happening. By nightfall, Sergei had convinced enough people to attempt the impossible, to save a creature that could kill any of them with a single swipe of its paw. The challenge was immense. No veterinarians lived in Dixon. The nearest wildlife expert was over 1,000 miles away in Norilsk, and a polar bear isn't exactly a cooperative patient. What followed was a frantic series of satellite phone calls. The Moscow Zoo agreed to help, but their team would take days to arrive. The bear clearly didn't have days. "We need to act now," Sergei insisted, "or he'll die waiting for experts." That night, as temperatures dropped to freezing even in July, the villagers gathered in the community hall. Olga Shevtsova, who had worked as a nurse for 40 years, stepped forward. "I've never treated anything bigger than a dog," she admitted, "but anatomy is anatomy. If we can sedate him safely, I can try to remove the can." The plan they formed was dangerous and desperate. Using tranquilizer darts meant for reindeer and a dosage calculated over hurried satellite calls with wildlife experts, they would attempt something never done before in Dixon, a polar bear rescue. Dawn broke on July 20th. The bear had collapsed near the shore, too weak to move further. His breathing came in labored gasps. The can, they could now see, was deeply embedded, the metal edges creating infected wounds that oozed with each painful breath. Sergei approached first, tranquilizer rifle ready. The bear raised his massive head, not in aggression, but in what looked remarkably like hope. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between man and bear, a primal understanding. The dart found its mark. The bear struggled briefly before succumbing to the sedative. Now, the clock was ticking. They had perhaps 45 minutes before he would wake. Olga worked methodically, her weathered hands steady despite the pressure. The metal can had created a vacuum seal, and the bear's swollen tongue made extraction incredibly difficult. Blood made her grip slippery as she worked. "Almost there," she whispered, her face tense with concentration. "Stay with me, big fellow." With a sickening sound, the can finally came free. Cheers erupted from the small crowd of onlookers, but their celebration was premature. The bear's breathing had become dangerously shallow. "He's giving up," Olga said urgently. "He's been fighting too long." What happened next would become legend in Dixon. Sergei knelt beside the massive predator, and began speaking to him in low, urgent tones, not in English or Russian, but in the ancient dialect of his indigenous grandmother. "Fight," he urged. "Your spirit is stronger than your pain." Whether it was the medicine, Sergei's encouragement, or the bear's remarkable will to live, something changed. The great chest began to rise and fall more steadily. The bear would live, at least for now. The villagers created a makeshift recovery area, placing fish and water nearby for when the bear awakened. No one expected what happened next. The bear didn't flee when he regained consciousness. Instead, he stayed on the outskirts of the settlement for 3 full days, growing stronger with each passing hour. He kept his distance, a wild thing once more, but each morning he would appear on the ridge overlooking the village, visible to all, watching, waiting, remembering. On the 4th day, he disappeared back into the vast white wilderness that was his true home. The Moscow zoo team arrived too late to treat the bear, but documented everything. Their report caused a sensation in wildlife circles. A polar bear seeking human help defied everything known about these solitary predators. For the people of Dixon, something fundamental had changed. Their relationship with the white bears that shared their harsh world would never be the same. "We always saw them as enemies or threats," Sergei explained to a researcher months later. "Now we understand they're just trying to survive in a world we've made harder for them." Plastic waste and human garbage had found its way even to the remote Arctic. The can that nearly killed the bear was evidence of humanity's reach and its responsibility. The story spread far beyond Dixon. Conservation efforts in the region received unprecedented attention and funding. Cleanup initiatives removed tons of dangerous debris from Arctic shores. But in Dixon itself, the most profound change was invisible. People watched the horizon differently now. They spoke of the bears with new respect, recognizing an intelligence and dignity they'd previously denied. Sergei often walked to the ridge where the bear had kept his vigil. Sometimes in the distance, he thought he glimpsed a familiar white shape watching from afar. Whether real or imagined, it comforted him. 2 different worlds had touched briefly, the human and the wild, and both emerged transformed. Scientists would later confirm that the bear's behavior was unprecedented. Polar bears typically avoid human contact at all costs, especially when injured. This young male had somehow understood that his only chance lay in breaking the ancient boundary between his kind and ours. As for the people of Dixon, they keep the dented condensed milk can in their tiny museum, a reminder of the day they were asked a question by a creature who couldn't speak. "Will you help me?" And they answered yes. In the vastness of the Arctic, where life and death play out against endless white, something remarkable happened. A bear asked. Humans listened. And in that moment, the distance between species vanished like footprints in fresh snow. 1 year later, to the day, Sergei stood on the shoreline watching the ice floes drift in the midnight sun. The Moscow zoo researchers had returned to Dixon, this time with sophisticated tracking equipment. Against all odds, they had identified their bear, distinguished by unique scarring around his mouth where the can had been removed. The data revealed something extraordinary. While most polar bears range thousands of miles in search of food, this particular male had established a territory that kept Dixon always within its boundaries. He never approached the settlement again, never crossed that invisible line, but he remained mysteriously close. "It's as if he's keeping watch over us," Olga suggested, her voice soft with wonder, "the way we once watched over him." The children of Dixon had given the bear a name, Nadezhda, meaning hope in Russian. It seemed fitting for a creature who had gambled everything on human compassion and won. Climate scientists who visited Dixon noted the shrinking ice sheets and warming temperatures threatening polar bear habitats throughout the Arctic. The story of Nadezhda became more than just a tale of one bear's rescue. it grew into a powerful symbol of what stands to be lost if human behavior doesn't change. "We saved one bear," Sergei often told visitors who came to hear the famous story, "but that's not enough. We need to save their world too." As the Arctic night finally fell, bringing stars to the northern sky, Sergei thought he spotted a familiar silhouette moving across a distant ice floe, a massive white shape, sovereign and free. Whether real or imagined, it filled his heart with something beyond words, a connection that transcended the ancient divisions between predator and prey, wild and tame, them and us. In a world growing ever more disconnected from nature, Dixon had remembered something vital, that the line between human and animal has always been thinner than we pretend. And sometimes, it takes a desperate bear with a can stuck on his face to remind us of who we truly are and who we could be. If you enjoyed it, then watch our next video shown on screen.